It's 2025, Wadsworth. Why are we still talking about nails? I'll tell you why. Because even though screws have come so far and they're so convenient, and drill drivers and all of the options that now are on the table for fastening things with a screw are beautiful, sometimes you've just got to be able to know what nail you need, where to get it, and how to put it in. So the elephant in the living room is, why don't we screw our houses together? Screws are so much better, and they're everywhere, and they have, there are as many different types of screws now as there are different types of nails. So there's a couple of answers for that, the way I see it, and there may be others. And when you have an answer or any sort of observation on any of this, please put it in the comments, because that's where the real significant teaching happens on this channel, is in your comments. But why don't we screw our houses together? Man, oh man, you take these Torx drive and you just go, man, what a beautiful connection that, oh, the tip came off. And I think this is a T25. Man, that's so, yes. How much did it cost to do that? I don't know, but it cost more than this. And that has to be at the bottom line why the houses aren't, why everything isn't screwed together. Because there's only so much money in a household, and people need a place to live, and there are corners that can be cut. Now, is nailing something instead of screwing it together cutting a corner? No, because there are engineering concepts, and keep in mind this is a carpenter telling you about an engineering concept, about the safety margin in the things that are designed. They've got to be like at least 2.5 to 1, I think, or a factor of 3 safety. I don't know. Ask an engineer. But it has to be better than it needs to be. But it doesn't have to be 100 times better than it needs to be. And nails are understood. And screws are understood. And if you get sufficient times 3 strength out of a set of nails that can be put in 5 seconds compared to 2 or 3 screws that are put in 50 seconds, that's the short and easy answer. Now, but, pause, comma. When it's something that has to be taken apart, or if resistance to draw out is the big dynamic, then yes, we have to use a screw. And so structural screws have made an appearance, and they're used all over, where the connection has to be stronger than you could possibly get it with a nail, for attaching trusses to top plates, for attaching elephants. Let me put the right thing on here. For attaching elephants to locomotives, for attaching any number of things that really have to be sturdy, and where only one fastener is needed. So yeah, there's a place for both of these fasteners. So here's an assortment of the nails that I have used with regularity over the last 46 years as a carpenter, 30 of them as a general contractor. These are the things that have been and still are used to put houses and remodels and additions and chicken houses, for that matter, together. Let's talk about the similarities, let's talk about the differences, and where you might choose one or choose a different one. We're going to start right here in the middle with the items that are different than everything else. These are duplex nails, scaffolding nails, and they're used in formwork and building scaffolding, because you can drive them in and still have a head exposed for pulling them out. The 16 penny, the 8 penny are pretty much the 2 sizes that I use most often. These are Hilti pins. They're hardened nails for fastening to concrete. These have replaced cut nails, which are hand drive, high carbon steel, super hard, super brittle nails that can drive into concrete. I don't think I even have one in the shop anymore. With these out of the way, what we're down to is just the nails that look like nails in several different sizes and with 2 or 3 different finishes. Most used is the 16 penny sinkers. This is probably a box nail configuration, which is smaller diameter. This is probably the equivalent of a 16-penny common, but they're both referred to as sinkers, mostly because of the smooth glue coat that goes on there, because they do go in easy and they do pull out hard. This is an 8-penny sinker, probably about 2 3/8 long. These are probably 3 1/4. These are the two nails that if you don't have any other nails in your bags and your framing, you ought to have those. 16-penny sinkers and 8-penny sinkers. Here's a couple specialty nails. This is a 4-penny sinker, or just a conventional nail, maybe a 4-penny box is what that's called. Sometimes you need a little bitty nail for attaching something light, and this has the added bonus of having a slight ring shank. Those are most often used for nailing down underlayment, although staple guns and air nailers have almost completely wiped those out. Same with the finished nail. That's a 4-penny finish. Sometimes you got to be able to drive one of those, take a nail set and set it down below the surface, but only occasionally. Over here we have a range of galvanized, hot dip galvanized nails. The galvanizing protects against corrosion. We're going to start right here. This is a Tico nail. That's for fastening Simpson hangers, the sheet metal hangers that hold the world together now. An inspector will want to be able to see some sort of a stamped insignia on the top so that he knows you didn't just drive a 7-penny siding nail in there, or 5-penny in this case. It has to be something that he can identify as being large enough in diameter and heavily enough corrosion protected that it's going to last for a good long time. Moving up, this is, I think, a 6-penny galvanized box nail. That's a 7-penny siding nail. Head is smaller, less obtrusive. Drive it carefully. Don't leave any tracks in the cedar siding. Walk away proud. The advantage of hot dipped and the corrosion resistance on siding is it doesn't streak, or it doesn't tend to streak. But if you want it perfectly corrosion resistant, you better get out your wallet and buy stainless steel. Here's a better example of box nails. This is a 16-penny galvanized box, 16-penny galvanized common. These are used in fascia board and other exterior finish situations. Now we're getting up to the big boys. 20-penny, sometimes for holding down a truss or a rafter, or just really getting with it if something has to hold and you're not worried about splitting it. This is an 8-inch spike. I have no idea what the penny designation is on that, but by the time you get done driving that in, you're going to know you drove a nail. So now we get to the place and the sort of nail that really establishes the advantage of a nail and a nail gun. Let me clear this off and show you some of this stuff. Let me drill down on the nails that you are most likely to need to know about before I jump to the nail gun and sort of demonstrate why those have swept, absolutely swept construction. Here's the nails that, you know, will work for most things. Now here's the takeaway though. Yes, any nail will go in anywhere, but there are ideal applications for ideal nails, and sometimes it's just absolutely worth getting the right thing for the right job. These 8-penny sinkers, you carry these because they are best for nailing plywood to the framework. They're 2 3/8. You can have 1/2 inch or 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch through the sheeting and still have plenty of material into the meat. Now you've got to have a lot of these to get cumulative strength, and so nowadays you just toenail down the corners to keep the sheet in place and then nail it off with a nail gun. But if you're detailing your top and bottom plates and you don't want them to get scrambled and mixed up, if you've got these in your bag, you can through nail one plate into another and you only have that much embedment holding them together, so you can pull those plates apart by hand, clinch that nail, and not have chaos when you try to match your plates together. So tacking plates, tacking plywood, and holding the end of a chalk line, you better have some vinyl coated sinkers. 16 sinkers, these are the ones that hold the world together. These can through nail. You know, if you have a 3 1/4 inch nail, you're going to have 1.5 inches through one plate and 1 3/4 inches into the other, which means it's going to stick through a little bit, which means you'll hook your finger on it. But if you angle it a little bit, you still get full penetration. They drive fast. They set flush. They're the tool. Now let me back up. You can toenail with these, but sometimes you can toenail with 3 or 4 8-pennies and get sufficient structural strength and not have to drive in or split your material quite as readily as this nail will. Now let me show you a trick right here that you may already know. If you have a nail that you don't want to split the end of a board, you can blunt the end. Maybe you got to put it on something hard. A nail that's been blunted tends to cut its way through the board rather than part the fibers, and you're not as likely to split things. These are specialty nails. You don't use these in framing much. This little guy, kind of a unique, let me show you a couple of these boxes. Because nowadays in the box stores, you buy nails in boxes rather than bulk. That's what the 8-penny sinkers look like in a box. Here is what this little nail looks like in a box. It's 1.25 inches long, 12.5 gauge, and it is slightly ring shanked. That's for tacking down or maybe nailing down. Underlayment. Now maybe you don't have a nail gun strung out or a stapler and you need to nail some down. This is a nail that doesn't tend to back out and squeak. But it's not galvanized. There's no coat at all, which means it better stay in the dry. This little nail is kind of a dinosaur, but doggone it, sometimes you need a dinosaur. That's a finished nail. It is for exactly what the name implies, finished material. It's tedious to put in. It takes a pretty good hand with a hammer and a nail set. But sometimes if you've just got to fix 1 or 2 little problems in somebody's house, Aunt Gladys, for instance, you don't want to roll out the nail gun, got a box of 4-penny finish, nice to have. This little nail, have I got a box here of these? Yeah. That's a 4-penny box, galvanized. It's just a little nail. Maybe you've got some lath to put around underneath a deck. Maybe you've got some paneling to put up in your barn or some barn wood that you're building something with. It will not rust, or at least it takes a long time. This is an 8-penny gun nail, electro-galvanized, which means a pressure-treated board will break through that corrosion resistance, but a cedar board probably won't. Hot-dip galvanized is the most durable. Maybe I mentioned that. That's a 7-penny siding nail. If you're putting on wood siding, you better have some of those in your bags. And then the 16-penny common galvanized. You can frame with those, but you're not going to get as much work done, and there's no reason to frame with those, but you use those for the heavier members that are exterior finish. The jam legs, the fascia board, that sort of thing. And on a deck, it's a good fastener. So nail guns. Nail guns have changed the construction industry in the United States as much as skill saws. They've revolutionized everything. And they've also stolen from us the ability to hand nail. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But there are different brands. I have settled on Hitachi for years, but there's Passload, and there's Bostitch, and there's Senko, and there is Hilti, and on and on and on. And there's Metabo now. Hilti's been taken over by Metabo, and Makita makes a nail gun, and Porter, yes. And all of them do this. That's making money. I mean, that's making somebody money to be able to do that. And the coating thing is all the same as I've described. The length, the penny designation. Keep in mind that you can buy nails that are up to 3.5 inches long. And so when you nail your trimmers to your king studs, bang, 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 you're going to have little hooks. You're going to have a danger on the backside of the king stud of those nail ends sticking out. So I like to buy 12-penny, 3-inch gun nails for framing. They work great. But it brings us to the issue of confirmation bias. And the thing that we know, the thing that we do, that we've always done, clearly being the best because it's the way I do it, well, that's nonsense. But nail guns illustrate this, because when they began to come out, maybe the mid-60s, late 1960s, the carpenters said, well, those are junk because the nails don't hold as well when they're put in with air. I hear people say that now and believe it. And the obvious retort is, well, maybe, but when you put it in with a nail gun, you put in 4 times as many, or you can. So confirmation bias bites all of us every day, and there's just no substitute for being able to fasten something instantly in all positions. It's just great. So if you can get a nail gun, do it. But drive some nails by hand and learn how to nail. I mean, learn how to drive a nail. And Larry Hahn is as good as anyone ever was with driving nails. And it's a combination of the fulcrums of your shoulder, your elbow, and your wrist. The grip is loose. You're throwing the hammer at the work and controlling its descent. It is your 2 small fingers that are flicking that hammer and making it happen. You get to the point where you just watch where you want to hit and the hammer will automatically go there. And it only takes about 10,000 hours to learn that skill, just like any other skill. But skills are important. The more skilled we are, the more useful we are. The more useful we are, the bigger benefit we are to the people around us. And that, my friends, should be the object of whatever we learn how to do. Learn how to be more of a benefit to the people around you. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.